All right, what's good, assholes? We got another bike review for you today. This is the Giant Rain E Plus 2, or at least it was in its stock form. I've pretty much changed everything on the bike at this point, but I've been riding it for almost a full year now, which is quite a lot for me. And after all that time, I can definitely say that this is a certified, bona fide Rigg. I've got along really well with this bike. I'm excited to talk about it. Let's get into it. And I've just come off of sliding this thing around in the mud, so it's all fresh in my mind. I'll be breaking up this review into 3 parts. I'll be talking about the geo of the bike, then the suspension and chassis, and then the motor, and kind of talking about my upgrade process. But to start with the geometry, that's really what drew me into this bike. You know, if you've been following the channel, you know I'm geeking out on this shit, and you know, I'm scouring the internet for geometry numbers that I think would fit me, especially when I was looking to buy an e-bike. I did buy this thing with my own money, and yeah, the Giant kind of stood out. It has a 480 reach, a 455 chainstay, and I think it's a 63.5-degree head angle. That was kind of a mix of numbers I've been looking for, and after riding it for a year, I can definitely say that that mix of numbers works so well for me. I mean, yeah, it's got a pretty big wheelbase, but it is so balanced. Like, it's no coincidence that that's the same number that's on the Frameworks Enduro bike. That's a bike I've been really wanting to try. And I don't know, I'm just able to ride this bike so intuitively. I'm not having to like manage front end grip. Like, I actually think it being balanced in that way and having a lot of front end grip like helps deal with the wheelbase and the weight of the bike. Like, I'll play some clips here. It's like, dude, I'm able to whip this thing around like what it do. Like, I'm able to chop the rear end and like sick drifts. And like when I'm sliding the bike, I feel like I'm generating traction and drive. I'm not just like, the rear wheel isn't just like sliding on top of the trail. It's like digging in a lot. And like, I don't know, since I have so much confidence with the front wheel, I'm just able to chop the rear end around whenever I need to. And yeah, this, as long as there's like some grade and like terrain to work with, this bike can come alive in like a really fun way. It's just not, you know, obviously it's not going to be the most inspiring on like flatter trails. And like, but like I said, as long as you feed it some speed and some gradient, this thing just starts to wake up. And I just did the e-bike shootout with Marin Service Course, and you know, we rode some awesome e-bikes. I would say I'd put this up there with the best of them. I've even taken it like recently to some like more downhill-esque shuttle spots that I've never ridden on an e-bike, and I did a couple laps on this thing, and I'm like, dude, I might actually be like riding this better than I ever have. I don't actually think I was going faster, but the thing felt freaking good, like way better than I expected on like that type of terrain, which is like hairball steep, rough ass shit that I'm like, you know, I'm not puckered to ride on a normal bike, but I'm like taking it pretty seriously. And I took this thing down those trails and was like, yup, this thing slaps. I keep using that term, but like, I'm like, yeah, this thing friggin' rips. And I had the confidence to like not kind of manage an e-bike down it, but like actually kind of push and take all the kind of heavier hitter lines and kind of send this thing. So yeah, I couldn't really put it in a spot that it felt uncomfortable. If I was gonna lose traction, the rear end kind of stepped out before the front, which is what I like. I'm able to ride off cambers, drift it around, switchbacks, kind of steer with the rear. I would definitely say that's like more the style in which I ride this bike. Like, it actually can do both now that I think about it. Like, you can commit over the front and drive and get a response out of it, but you can also like chop the rear end around and do big drifts. Like, it kind of just responds with ease. As long as you tell it what to do. You know, maybe that's worth taking into account. Like, I'm a pro level rider. I've been riding at a high level for like 10 years now. So I'm perfectly happy with whipping this thing around. If you're not an assertive rider, this thing might feel big and a bit dead. I did run it in the high position. I tried it in the low and I was just scraping pedals, and I feel like it turned better in the high mode. I actually don't really mind a higher BB. I think the head angle's plenty slack, and I just thought the bike responded better in the high position. I'm able to run my bars pretty damn high. It's 20 mils of spacers under the stem with a 7.5 mil rise stem and 35 mil one-up riser bars. And I'm just in like such a comfortable position. Like I'm 6'1", this is a large, should have covered that earlier, but I just feel like my hands are exactly where I want them. And then from that position, I can pretty much do anything I want. And like with e-bikes, you can get kind of out of shape on them, and it's kind of scary when you do. Like it's easy to blow breaking points on these. And with this bike, I feel like, you know, the geo, the chassis, the suspension, everything, like when I got into those moments, I could really just like, okay, relax, trust the bike, commit to the corner. I could trust the bike to figure itself out and like come out composed. And I never really had moments where it was like catching me out, you know, unless like, you know, I made a mistake. But I felt like I was able to build trust with this bike, and it just complemented the way I want to ride. Like I was able to cut into off-camber lines, you know, cross the trail. I just had grip to work with, and yeah, the bike responded really nicely. I did run it in the high position. I tried it in the low, and I was just scraping pedals, and I feel like it turned better in the high mode. I actually don't really mind a higher BB, and I think the head angle's plenty slack, and I just thought the bike responded better. I'll move into the suspension. Like, so this is giant, I'm pretty sure they're still calling it Maestro, I don't know, but it's 160 rear, 170 front, and the suspension on this thing is really sick too. You know, I'm a flat pedal rider, and this was like a treat to ride on flat pedals. I feel like there was a really low amount of feedback coming from my feet, and I just didn't really have too much to complain about. I mean, this is with the Ohlins coil shock and the 38. The stock suspension was like, had some issues. It was actually pretty good, but you ran it into a ceiling pretty quickly. And it, especially this being like a heavy bike, it just couldn't handle it when you were like really smashing. But especially after I put this Ohlins coil on and the Ohlins fork, the bike stayed so composed. And I will actually get into the Ohlins suspension here. I mean, I feel like, yeah, the stock stuff just had a speed limit. Like, it was fine. It actually felt pretty decent, but like as soon as I started to push like over 80%, it just got overwhelmed, and like it would bottom out and like literally bounce off the ground. And then as soon as I put this shock on, the whole bike like composed itself up, and that stopped happening. Like honestly, if I were to choose between the fork and the shock, I think especially on an e-bike, the shock is almost more important, but having the Ohlins 38 up there too. I think Ohlins suspension actually really complements e-bikes. I mean, it's really good regardless, but it isn't the most supple off the top. But the amount of support and control the damping gives you is like really impressive. But being that this is a heavier bike, it kind of eases into that first part of the travel and makes the bike feel a little bit more plush and composed anyway. So I feel like that small bump isn't as big of an issue, and the bike really benefits from just like the awesome amount of damping control that the Ohlins stuff offers. And you know, I kind of like got my settings right. I'm running like 2 clicks of high speed, about in the middle on low speed. It's like this stuff's really easy to figure out too. You know, Ohlins, I'm not affiliated with Ohlins anymore, but I still really enjoy running the suspension. And you know, geo, chassis, and having Ohlins on this bike just like came together in a package where, again, I just knew what the bike was going to do. It didn't surprise me in any way. And when I pushed it on like rough, steep stuff, like I felt like the ceiling of this bike was crazy high for an e-bike. Like I said, the feedback through my feet as a flat pedal rider was like really manageable. And, you know, gets to the point where I'm doing this review and it's like, I don't really have much to analyze. Like, it was just really good. And to continue on my long chainstay shit, it definitely helps with climbing too. Like, I feel like long chainstays are like a no-brainer on most bikes, but like especially e-bikes, because you're climbing up hella steep shit all the time, and it's like, dude, this longer chainstay helps plant the front wheel. It's a fairly steep seat tube. I felt like the climbing position on this bike was so comfortable, and it was really easy to like keep your weight forward and climb up a bunch of stuff. I felt like I was a pretty effective technical climber on this bike, and it kept me comfortable for like big days in the saddle too. But yeah, I think that's about it on the suspension. Like, it was good, and Ohlins is sick. Moving on to the motor. So this is the Yamaha motor with the 800 watt battery. And, you know, coming off of riding a bunch of Bosch Gen 5 motors for this e-bike shootout, it's definitely not like as peppy or fast as the Bosch systems. But it's not nearly as bad as the SRAM motor. The SRAM motor is a ways off. I mean, I would say that even the Shimano motor is a little faster, but like I don't get on this and feel like bummed out. I'm still able to like keep up with other bikes mostly, and riding it by myself, like I don't need the bike to be any faster. But I will say I feel like I get insane range out of this. Like I don't Strava my rides. Like I'm not a big stat guy, so I can't tell you like, oh yeah, like I'm able to do this many feet, this many miles, but like I've done some big ass days on this thing, and like when I'm boosting with other friends on this other bikes with the same battery capacity, I feel like I'm able to like get more miles out of this bike. I don't know, I feel like it's fairly adequate. Like I don't think this is the best motor, but it's like I wouldn't not buy it because of the motor, at least for me. Like my priorities with the e-bike is like, as long as the motor is good enough, like I'm still buying the bike for like handling, performance, geo, and this bike is a really good combo of all that. And I was like happy enough with the motor. I will say the controller is actually like super well integrated. It doesn't have a screen, but like the cockpit setup is fairly clean, and that button is like really easy to get to. I will say it's like not the quietest bike, but it's tolerable. There's like a little rattle. I will just touch on the parts. So I'll start with the drivetrain. I'm actually running a 11-speed hodgepodge drivetrain. So it's a XT derailleur and shifter with a SRAM 11-speed 10 to 42 tooth cassette and chain. And I actually ran this for a full race season a couple years ago, and it just makes sense on an e-bike. Like this stuff has been super durable and reliable. E-bikes just chew through drivetrain stuff, and like having a mechanical XT 11-speed drivetrain, it's like, all right, if I nuke a derailleur, like these things are like $60 off Jensen or something. So I don't know, I've been happy with it. Like I actually am wanting a little bit of a lower gear sometimes because it is a 36 tooth chainring, but besides like the steepest, most technical climbs, like sure, yeah, this stuff is fine. And yeah, I'd rather have like a more durable bomber drivetrain than yeah, extra gearing. Let's see, yeah, I did a review on these ENVE AM30 wheels, but these were a great upgrade. They've been super bomber, especially rallying this like hoss of an e-bike through rocks and stuff. Running the Lewis brakes, that's going to be the next video. I don't think there's enough daylight now, but I'm going to record my Lewis review up next. I am running a Sprindex, which I'm a huge fan of. It just allows you to adjust your spring rate. I'm pretty happy where it's at right now. I believe it's like 495, 500. So yeah, 500 pound spring on that Ohlins shock. Praxis, I think 160 mil cranks. Yeah, 1-up riser bar with a Frazen 44 mil stem with 7.5 mil rise. That's been my go-to for a while now. Bergtech grips. And yeah, like I said, never thought I would be this stoked on a Giant, but here I am raving about this thing. And yeah, it's hard to like analyze it too deeply because it's just good. It's just what I want. And I've really enjoyed riding this thing. Unfortunately, it is going to be for sale. got to fund the summer projects, and yeah, I just bought a new rig that I'm gonna be living out of for the summer that I'll probably tease here. I'll get a shot of it, but that's about it. Never thought I'd be this jazzed about a Giant, but thanks for watching. Hit me up on Patreon if you're enjoying the content. I'm starting to do more exclusive content over there. There's more people joining, so I'm happier to allocate more time and you know, get a little bit more in depth and answer more personal questions over there. Help out with like bike setup and, you know, buying advice. And also, I see a lot of you guys aren't subscribed and you've probably watched 1 or 2 videos. I'm not getting like that many new viewers on these. So I would appreciate it if you subscribed. It'd help me out with what I'm doing over here. But I appreciate you watching either way, and I'll see you guys in the next video.